Traveling around Europe can be very expensive, even if you're going with a budget, even if you have all the accommodations planned out. If you have everything already set up, it's more than likely you're gonna find that things can get very costly when you're in Europe. There was times where it really tested us, where we literally ate sandwiches for a whole week straight. So in this video, I'm gonna talk about all the things that I learned going to Europe on an extremely low budget, and I think that it might help you out with some of these tips that I'm gonna be sharing. So planning and not planning the trip. So if you have the accommodation set up before you get to Europe, that's gonna be one of the biggest things that you can do to save money when you do go there. Because from my mistakes that I did, is that I went to Europe, had no accommodations, I had nothing, I had no flights internally, no bus tickets, no train tickets, nothing. The only thing that me and my wife had were 2 nights at a hostel, and that was it. That did help us out moving freely through Europe to kind of go and check out places, kind of going with the wind with stuff, but we found that we were going to places that we weren't really planning on it, just because it was cheaper to kind of get us closer to the cities and places that we wanted to get to. We were in Alicante, Spain, and we wanted to get to Rome from there. But we found that the flights, buying it last minute for the next day or 2 days in advance, went from what could have been 40 euros each to I think it was 300 euros each person. If we would have planned in advance with that type of flights like that, just at least getting the bigger countries and bigger flights in there before you get accommodations, I think it would have been much better. But the workarounds that we had to do to get to the places that we wanted to get to was take long bus rides, long car rides, train rides, and we ended up going to a whole bunch of different places that we were not planning on going to, just to kind of like inch our way closer to Rome. Planning in advance could be really beneficial if you're on a budget. Tip number 2 is packing. Make sure when you go, you're packing accordingly of things that you know you're gonna be needing and things that you believe you're gonna need, but you're actually not. And that was one of the big mistakes that me and my wife did when we went. I first thought that I was taking just enough stuff. This is what's gonna be perfect for me because we were going in the summertime. So I took 5 shirts, a few shorts. I think I took like 3 shorts, 2 pairs of shoes, and then I took socks and underwear. And what I noticed was that I did not use more than half of the things I took. If I can go back to really redo my suitcase when I go, I'd literally take a white shirt or 2 white shirts and a black shirt, and that's it. Literally, that's all I really needed. Well, I need shorts too. I'll take 2 pairs of shorts at the most. For the shoes, I would recommend you take a pair of good sneakers that are comfortable, that's gonna look good with photos and stuff. On average, we were walking about 25,000 steps a day, really avoiding public transportation and really walking a whole bunch with everything that we needed to get to. Another pro tip that I have, if you're doing flights in Europe, having just a backpack is gonna help you save quite a bit, because a lot of the cheap airlines and stuff, they end up making their money on the extra luggages that you're putting on, the carry-ons, and that stuff really starts to add up. If you think about it, 1 carry-on was like 50 bucks to add on, and that's a couple meals right there that can easily be saved if you just literally pack accordingly and don't have to take so much. It's gonna be much easier to move around. Definitely, I would recommend packing light. And one of the backpacks that I do recommend is gonna be like a clamshell backpacks, ones that open up like completely flat, so you're able to like properly organize the stuff that you have. Maybe a sleeve for the laptop, some things for technology, but those backpacks for me would have saved me a lot of headache, a lot of back pain, a lot of just everything with overall moving around with the backpack on. So tip number 3 is gonna be the transportation. The transportation can easily take your budget way off. It can really throw off all the savings that you're trying to do. So again, planning in advance is gonna be one of the most affordable things that you can do to fly comfortably place to place. But the way that I went there was none of that. So the ways that I found to work really good, there's this company called BlaBlaCar that is literally a kind of like an Uber, but for long distance travels. They also have buses and stuff, but me and my wife took a 5-hour car ride from Alicante to Barcelona. And in that car ride, it was very comfortable. It was just a guy who goes to work in Barcelona every week, and we just hopped in the car with him. It was super comfortable, very straightforward. We took 1 break in between. And for the both of us, we went from Alicante to Barcelona for 60 bucks. A lot more affordable than other buses that we were finding, which were coming up around 60 euros each person to do that 5-hour bus ride. For a lot cheaper, we did that private ride, super comfortable. Although the guy, his car ended up breaking right when we got to Barcelona. His battery died or something like that, so we literally barely made it there. Another thing that you could do to save quite a bit of money is getting bus tickets and train tickets overnight to kind of try to sleep on the bus or train that you're going in. And overall, it is a good way to save money. From my experience, it's not one of the better things to do just because usually the seats are very uncomfortable. You're either hot on the bus or cold on the train, and it can be a very uncomfortable situation like ours. We took a 15-hour bus ride from Barcelona to a town called Genova in Italy. We had to go through France. It was a really long bus ride, and it was supposed to be 15 hours, but it ended up being like over 17 hours, 18 hours, something like that. We ended up finding that for 2 people for 60 euros, but very, very uncomfortable. The drivers we had were smoking. Literally, when they were driving, they had the loudest conversations. It was a big mess doing something like that. It could be the one that we chose. Definitely be careful when you are doing those overnight trips. Make sure that you're not finding the most affordable. Find something that's probably a little bit more comfortable, that has better ratings and stuff, that's gonna be there on time, because we were waiting outside for a few hours. But yeah, overall, that experience there, the body odor of the bus drivers, it was just horrible. It looks like they were driving for hours. They looked exhausted. It was definitely an experience that I would not recommend, but it was, now looking back, very funny, very adventurous. For that situation there led me to understand that not always the cheapest option is going to be the best, and that's a prime example of it. But anyways, it worked out. We did save a night of hotel. It wasn't worth it. It was not the best experience by far. Then of course the other 2 options are going to be with flights and with trains. You notice that a lot of the trains were not too well connected, like internationally. I know there is if you do, again, plan in advance, but if you're trying to get it last minute, it's going to be very complicated. And we were trying to go from France to Spain, which really is like the countries are touching, but we found that it was impossible, and the only ways and workarounds that we did was literally just buying a plane ticket. Yeah, the trains are very good if you're looking to do like internally inside the countries. I found that to be one of the more affordable ways to do it. Also, a lot of the trains that you do take, you have the 2 options. You have the bullet train, and you have like a slower option train. And I found that the slower option train is a lot more affordable. There's no assigned seats. You don't have the same comfortabilities as the bullet train with the bigger chairs and everything like that. But it is a good and affordable option if you can find it at a right price. And as far as the transportation goes inside the city, we found that walking was one of the best ways. Of course, we would usually try to get the hostels as close as possible to the things that we wanted to do, just to save money on the transportation. What would be literally just walks out. And although it was affordable, it was just a lot easier to do a lot of the things, and kind of spending more to be a little bit more comfortable in what was a very uncomfortable situation with the hostels definitely helped being in a good location there. In Paris, they did have an all-day option where you can literally go on the trains and buses and just go hopping around all over the place. And we found that to be a very, very affordable option to really get to know the whole city in a very limited amount of time that we had. I think when we were there, it was about 10 euros per person. And for tip number 4, we have accommodations. This is gonna be one of the biggest things that your budget's gonna be going to, is gonna be the accommodations of where you're planning on sleeping, because this will really determine other factors of the whole trip. And I found that one of the best things is hostels, hands down. Although very uncomfortable sometimes with air conditioning, with the smells inside the hostels, I found that it was one of the best ways to save money because of the kitchen. The kitchen is one of the most important ways to save money when you are doing a low budget Euro trip, because you have a refrigerator where you can buy at a grocery store. You have the kitchen where you can cook. You have literally everything there for the price of the hostel, which are more affordable than hotels and Airbnbs for the most part. Another one of the biggest things that you're gonna be spending quite a bit of money on, if you don't pay attention with this, is gonna be the food and the water and everything that you're consuming. Things can get very, very out of budget if you don't pay attention with what you're buying, where you're going out to eat, or what are the things that you wanna do as far as consumption goes. Easily, you'll spend a lot of money per day if you don't have this parts right. And for the most affordable thing, of course, is going to be cooking at the hostels, finding quick things to eat that are going to be at the grocery stores. A lot of the grocery stores that we found mostly in Spain have like pre-cooked foods where you can go and buy pre-cooked literally everything, whatever you really wanted. They had cheeseburgers, they had sushi, they had rice, they had everything. They had the same style like that in France, but more with like the microwaved foods, where they had a ton of options. They had lasagnas, they had pad thai, they had literally everything where you could just buy and microwave. And at the place where you do buy like the microwave foods, they have like a whole wall of microwaves for the most part, most places have a place where you can heat up those type of foods. But literally cooking at the hostels is gonna be one of the most affordable things because you have the refrigerator where you're gonna be storing everything that you're gonna be cooking there. You just, before you leave, you set up the whole thing, you cook everything that you're gonna be eating for the day, and that's it. And eating, it was literally €2 per plate that we were eating a full plate of food, and super affordable. One of the best ways to do it is that way. Again, you are in Europe and there's a lot of different places to go out and eat, a lot of like foods local to the areas. So make sure you have a budget, at least a little bit, to eat some of the local foods. Tip number 6 is gonna be money. Money, and the way that you're gonna be transferring money from dollars or whatever currency you have to euros. It was, for me, an overall kind of complicated task. I thought it was gonna be a little bit better with the exchange rates that I was having with using my card. I thought it was gonna be a little bit more straightforward, but I found that making small adjustments to the way that I understood how the money situation works there, I can understand it a lot better. And of course, in Europe, they use the euro, and the euro is very strong there, so the dollar doesn't really make too much sense. People don't really give you the best exchange rates when you're there. And for finding currency exchange places, I would definitely recommend using Google Maps. You go to Google Maps, you'll put currency exchange, and then you'll check the reviews. And the reviews will tell you pretty much the most honest thing of how the things are, like what the exchange rate is, what they're giving there. And I found that walking a little bit further, going to those places on Google Maps, you can get a lot more euros per dollar, especially if you're changing higher amounts. And you can use your debit and credit card very easily. I found that the exchange rate sometimes is better than what it would be if you bring physical dollars to exchange to euros. But there is a big trick with that, and is that they're gonna want you to pay in the local currency of dollars. So they have this like little post-it thing where they kind of like, where the thing where you put your card in, and it'll show on the screen, it'll show either euros or dollars, and it'll have like your country flag and the Europe flag. And most of the times they're gonna want you to press the dollars because it's like, hey, that's gonna be convenient. I'm gonna be paying in dollars because this is a dollar debit card, like it works with the US dollar. But the way that works is that the commissions that the Postnet charges is gonna be similar to what it is if you use one of those ATM Euronets, which also is another kind of scam in a way. So make sure in every single place that you go to, clarify, because they'll even press it without you confirming what you wanna pay in. Clarify it, you want to pay in euros. They're going to kind of argue and be like, no, but this is for dollars. No, I want to pay in euros. And then from there, okay, they'll make it pass in euros, and it's going to be much more affordable like that. So with those tips there, those are the ways that I found to save money on the Euro trip that I did. Even though that in Europe, it's very expensive and very complicated to find ways to save money, there is always workarounds. You just got to keep looking. Sometimes if a flight is more expensive, reload the page, and the cookies on the flight would drop the price even more. Like a bunch of small little things. So just be cautious when you go. Make sure that you're paying attention with all the budgeting, because it can get easily out of hand very quick. But again, you're on a trip to enjoy. So there's gonna be times where you're gonna wanna do a whole bunch of things. Do it if it feels right, do it, because it's once in a lifetime trip. I mean, you can always go back, but at that very moment, take advantage of it. And that is about it for today's video. I have down below my affiliate links where you can check out the backpack that I would recommend for taking to Europe, this microphone, the camera that I'm using. I have all those affiliate links down below. And if you want to support the channel more directly, I have my PayPal down below. But that is about it for today's video. I'll see you in a few days with a new one. Peace.